Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to Near Calendar's franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we simulated more of the season to see if our team could continue on its good trajectory, which was the case. We are 41-18-3 a day before the trade deadline, which is awesome. We're also 7-3 in our last 10 games, so everything seems to be working quite well for this team. The one constant problem we've had is our penalty kill, which is still 23rd in the league at the moment, but I don't think it's a major issue that we necessarily need to actually address it. But right now we're 4th in offense, we're 1st in goals against, which is pretty damn awesome, and we're also 6th on the power play. And then, like I said, the penalty kill is 23rd in the league. So obviously the penalty kill is the one outlier, but I don't really think there's any reason to address it just because I feel like our team has been simulating good enough. We honestly probably will keep this exact same roster going into the playoffs. Like, I don't think I'm going to be making any trades in this episode because I've really liked the way most people have simulated on this team. As you can see, like Frondell's over point per game. He's on a career high probably year already, which is insane. We also have Makinen on 71 points. He's been fantastic, even despite missing a couple games due to injury. Houghton's on pace to win Norris this year, which is awesome. We have maybe a little bit of regression from a couple guys in terms of offense, I'd say, but in general, it's been a fantastic year, especially that top 6. For the most part, like, everything's been working quite well for this team so far, which is awesome to see. And in terms of our goaltending as well, like I said, we are the best defensive team in the league. We've been getting some really good goaltending from Solovyov. Obviously, he was injured early in the season, so I'm not too sure if he will be a candidate for the Vezina this year or not, but if he continues on this trajectory, I think he definitely could win it. He already has 5 shutouts through 37 games, but obviously, like I said, he already missed a lot of games. So Hainsey's played 28 games, has a winning record, but not the best save percentage and goals against. So it's mostly been Solovyov who's been the better of the 2 goaltenders. Hopefully he stays healthy the rest of the season and continues to do really well. But I honestly don't think there's any room for improvement. We go to like the plus minus, you can see mostly everybody on this team is plus. There's a couple minus guys, but most of them are depth kind of options like Kaminsky. Crane and Eriksson are minus, but that's not really a huge issue. Like, Eriksson's literally only a -1, Crane's a -3. Like, I think that line is doing enough. Obviously, their offensive numbers aren't as good as they were in the prior years, Crane and Eriksson, I think. But I do still think they could find themselves and end up finishing with like 30 plus goals for Crane and like maybe 35 plus assists for Eriksson on the season. So I still think this has been a very good regular season. I'm hoping it obviously continues in the playoffs. The one thing that's been a little bit of a problem, though, is there has been some morale issues on the team in terms of getting guys ice times. Like, for instance, Cassivi is complaining about his ice time. I think Schaefer also was. Let me double check on Schaefer. No, actually, maybe not. Unless the logs reset after each episode. Maybe the logs get rid of after you quit the game, which is kind of strange. But anyways, Cassivi definitely was losing morale due to ice time, which is kind of strange considering he's listed as a top 6 defender and we're playing him in that spot. But he is getting only 14 minutes a game, so I do want to get this guy more ice time. I think obviously in the offseason we'll be making some adjustments so that way maybe he could get a little bit of power play time or maybe even just some penalty kill time, something like that, just to make him a little bit more happy. Because I don't know if he's going to become necessarily a top 4 defenseman, but I could see him being a pretty good top 6 defenseman. But also I could see him getting into our top 4 at some stage. Now, the player we're probably going to trade away in the offseason is probably going to be Salmelainen because Schaefer definitely should be in the top 4. Like, they both put up really similar numbers. Also, Schaefer is very good in terms of not taking penalties. He has no penalty minutes so far through 62 games. Salmelainen only has 6, so both of them are very similar in terms of goal scoring, assists, amount of penalty minutes, plus minus. So I think obviously the younger defenseman should jump up, so that would make us want to move on from Salmelainen in the offseason. The one thing that Salmelainen is a bit different on from Schaefer is the fact that he's a right-handed shot, but he plays left side. But obviously Schaefer's a left-handed D that shoots left. I think moving Salmelainen will obviously fix a little bit of our issues, and that way we do still have more right-handers in our defensive core. So that's probably something we'll look to in the offseason. Right now it's not a huge issue, so I'm not going to address it right now. But in the offseason, Salmelainen could potentially get dealt, and he should have pretty good value too, so we should be able to get a decent return for him. He is also locked up for a few years, so I think obviously it will give a team a good chance to maybe give a good run with him, because he is a pretty solid defenseman, but at this stage I don't know if he's necessarily what I need to hold on to, because I feel like Schaefer's been very, very underrated with this team so far. Like, look at those plus minus results. Look at those offensive numbers. They're all pretty good. His penalty minutes, only 11 penalty minutes in 224 games. Like, this guy's kind of almost like Jacob Slavin in a sense, where he's very good in terms of not taking penalties as a defenseman. Maybe even also, what's his name? Jake Sanders. And I don't even know why I said what's his name, because he's one on my favorite team. But yeah, I've really liked the way Schaefer's simulated so far. He's not like the most like defensively minded. Like, he doesn't throw a lot of hits. Maybe that's why he doesn't take a lot of penalty minutes. But he's very, very solid. He does give the puck away a ton, but his plus minus seems to make up for it, which is a good thing. So, kind of wish I knew what his advanced analytics were like, but we would never know. So, there is all that. And yeah, before we get into simulating the rest of the season, taking a look at what trades go down at the deadline, that type of thing, let's get in your guys' comments and see what you guys had to say about last episode, and then we'll see what this team finishes like. I think we're probably going to easily hit 50 wins this year. There is a chance we could definitely hit 60, but it's probably unlikely at this stage. But I definitely think we could hit at least like 50 for sure. So the first comment is from Dylan Burrows, who says, trade Kasivi, don't hurt your team by moving better guys off it to fit him in the power play. And basically with that type of like the morale and stuff like that, Kasivi, we're not necessarily trying to get as much ice time as possible. He's like one that obviously could grow into getting more ice time, but right now the one I'm concerned about is getting Schaefer more ice time, and that's why I'm thinking about getting rid of Salmelainen in the offseason. It's not to get Kasivi more time, it's mostly to get Schaefer more ice time. I think obviously it would give Kasivi a little bit more ice time maybe by doing that trade as well, but Schaefer's the one guy that needs to be in that top 4 instead of on that top 6 pairing, so that's why I think Salmelainen will probably go in the offseason unless we find a reason not to trade him. But I think right now I would prefer probably having the youngster in the top 4 instead, just because they're very similar players already. We don't need to have that much players on that side. And also, I kind of want to have more guys that are officially right defensemen. We already have Tatar on their defensive core. Obviously, we have the youngster in Kasivi. And then also Boyd's technically a right defenseman too at the moment. Now Boyd could get dealt at some point, I guess, technically, if we want to get other guys in the system into our defensive core. But right now I think Boyd's a good one to have there. So technically, if we trade away Salmelainen, next season we'd have like multiple lefties and multiple righties, which is good. So I think that's probably why I would prefer to move on from Salmelainen over Boyd in the offseason if we do decide to do so. And yes, I know it would kind of suck to trade away him because he's been a good defenseman for us, but I think Schaefer could literally do the exact same thing in the exact same type of role, and he's 5 years younger as well. So that's my justification for that. And the last and final comment is from Simon Taco, says, stay the course, no trades needed, but Salmelainen is going to be the odd man out this offseason. You should be able to get a reasonable return for him. And yeah, I think we should be able to get a good return for him too. Obviously, he's an official top 4 defenseman. He's an 85 overall, was a former first round pick. I think we should be able to get a decent chunk of value for him. Like, if we even go to the proposed trade right now, how much trade value does he have out of curiosity? Not that I'm trading him right now, but I just want to see what his trade value would be like compared to everybody else on the team. So it is a little bit lower than some guys, but he's all the way down here, and he definitely has still a really nice chunk of value. Like, that should be easily a first round pick in my opinion. Maybe not a super early first round pick, but we could definitely get a first rounder for him, I think, in the future, which is nice to see. So I think that's probably what we're going to lean towards doing this offseason. Right now, obviously, he's a part of the team, and we're looking for a Stanley Cup. So hopefully we could give him a cup before we decide to move on from him. So with that said, I think we're ready to continue to simulate. Yeah, we might as well just advance to a day past the deadline, because I honestly don't think there's any room for improvement. Like I said, with this roster, if we go to edit lines right now, like, our lineup is set up so nicely, and this might be one of the deepest teams I've had. Like, we have a very nice deep right wing side of things. Our center depth is pretty damn strong, I'd say. Maybe a little bit weak with Leahy only being an 81, but it's not terrible. Left side is very strong. The defensive core is very strong. The goaltending is obviously strong too. Like, I don't think there's anything really I could upgrade to make us even to a better team. Like, we have a legit first line. I'd say a pretty legit second line. I'd say mostly a legit third line, because Sealfito should be maybe in a top 6 role. Same with Leeson. And that fourth line is also very good. So I honestly don't think there's anything I could really upgrade that much more. Maybe we could give ourselves a fourth line center and take Wallace out of the lineup, hypothetically. But I don't think I need to necessarily do that. So I think we'll probably keep it like this, and we'll see if this team is good enough to have a good run in the playoffs this year. Obviously, last year was a little bit of a disappointing end to the season, but I think we're going to have a better run potentially this year. Like, Frundell was really good last year's playoff run. I hope that he continues what he's doing this season in the playoffs, because if he does, he could get us a Stanley Cup potentially. And then, like I said, at some point, I might honestly move on from Frundell, but I'm not too sure exactly. It would be nice to have him here for his entire career, because he's 29 years old at this point, and he's been kind of like the leader on this team. But maybe at some stage we might have to move on from him if we want to get like Crane and Leeson into that top two roles. So we'll see what ends up happening down the road. But right now, our eyes are on the prize. Let's see if we could have a good rest of the season. Let's advance 1 or 2 days, actually, because we do want to go past this trade deadline and see if any former players got dealt, because there is a chance that some other former players of ours might be on the block. So let's see what we do against Utah. We beat them 5-1, so that would be beating Sierra. And who else did we trade there again? Oh, yeah, the young defenseman and Lightning. I'm kind of curious on how good those guys are doing in Utah and where they're in the lineup for the Utah Hockey Club, so we might take a look at that as well to start off this episode. So Cam York on waivers. Do I need a depth defenseman? Probably not, right? He is a lefty/righty. He's a 75 and listed as a top 6, so he's probably losing morale because of ice time. He's actually been relatively solid this season, 17 points in 65 games, but a -26. I could kind of see why they're waiving him. So yeah, we're not going to claim him, but best of luck to Cam York if he picks up a contract somewhere else. So what I wanted to take a look at is Utah's lines as well. But first, let's take a look at the trades that went down at the deadline, just in case any former players were involved. I don't know if there will be any former players involved, but it's always good to check. So let's see. Any guys I recognize? Well, Jesper Bratt getting dealt to Minnesota. He's still in this playing, apparently. Leaves from New Jersey. Brandon Hagel got dealt to Vegas, I think. Yeah, I think that's got to be Hagel, right? That's got to be the Hagel. Dawson Mercer's on his way to Minnesota as well from New Jersey. So New Jersey and Minnesota made multiple trades together, which is kind of interesting. J.J. Moser on his way to Detroit. Looking for former players, though, more importantly, if there's anybody out there, which right now I'm not seeing that. Devils made a lot of trades, it looks like, so they're offloading quite a bit. Desnoyers to Philadelphia. I think that's where... Isn't that where he started his career? Or is that where his brother was before? I don't even remember. That's an interesting one. Brant Clark goes to Ottawa. That's actually pretty sick. That's pretty sick. Just because he grew up, obviously, in the area. And, yeah, he actually attended Sens games when I would have been working at Canadian Tire Center back in the day, too. So, shout out to Brant Clark going to the Sens. Roger McQueen going to LA the other way. So, maybe a bit of a blockbuster there. Zellweger on his way to Vegas. Looks like Kalina got dealt 2 times at the deadline, because I think I just saw him getting dealt at the top, too, which is interesting. And that's it. So, yeah, no former players getting dealt, but did that same Kalina guy getting dealt 2 times? Let's see. Jacob Kalinin. I thought I saw him 2 times. Maybe not. Actually, maybe it was the Clem guy I thought I saw. Yeah, I think it was Clem I was getting confused with for no reason. All right, so those are the deadline deals. Anyways, no former players. What I wanted to take a look at, though, like I said, is I do want to go to Utah's lines and see where Sierra and where Lightning are fitting in. We will definitely take a look at their stats at the end of the season as well, but I'm hoping they're both in the lineup for Utah. Utah's a good team, so we'll be interesting to see what they do this year. And unfortunately, the young defenseman Lightning did not get a chance to play on their defensive core. However, Sierra is playing in their top 4, which is nice to see for him. He's getting actually some ice time. And looks like, yeah, Lightning is back in the AHL unless they decided to move on from him, which I'm honestly not too sure about. Let me go actually to the contracts and see if he's still under contract over there. I really hope that they're not just wasting him in the AHL. Like, hopefully they traded him somewhere before. Let's see. Leighton, and nope, he's in the AHL again. 79-23, poor guy. Can't catch a break. And this defensive core is going to be kind of hard for him to crack, too. I mean, he could be the replacement for Kalen Addison maybe this offseason or somebody like that. But looks like at least they're making good use of Sierra. But Lightning is stuck in the AHL once again. Did he play any NHL games this year for them? No, he did not. 25 points in 55 games this year in the AHL. Still doing some good stuff in the AHL, but they're just not utilizing him like we were. not utilizing him, so that's not great. All right, so now that that is all good and done, let's continue to simulate. And we are definitely going to be a playoff team. The one question I have, obviously, is can we keep it consistent in the playoffs and get back to a finals again? And can we actually win a Stanley Cup this year, potentially? Let's go to the 21st, take it a little bit slow just for fun. But this team has been very good this season, and I wouldn't expect anything less than, hopefully, a conference finals this year. Because if we have a bad playoffs, like if we're out in the first round, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. So, I think it was Mironov that needs to come out, if I remember right. I don't remember exactly. We'll get Rollins in that spot. But, yeah, at least we have some AHLers that are getting close to the NHL, too. Like, Korolyuk, for instance, is getting close. So, I'm excited to see who ends up making the NHL team next season. Like, Korolyuk could probably replace Wallace in the offseason, to be honest, because Wallace is a right winger anyways. So, we might have Korolyuk as a fourth-line center next year. Or if he goes higher than that, maybe higher than that. There's back-to-back losses, kind of surprised. All right. We do beat the Rangers in a shootout, though. Games against Chicago and Winnipeg coming up. Can we win both of them? Yes, we can, probably. Yes, we can. Nice. Our offense is very good, though. Like, 4 goals, 5 goals, 6 goals. Like, we don't get outplayed that much in terms of our offensive game. Like, these 2 games are kind of outlier games because we got outscored 9-1 in 2 games. But, like, every other game you could see that we've played so far in this month or so, we've scored, like, 5+ goals in each of them. So, for the most part. So, his team is doing pretty damn good offensively. And, yeah, it looks like we should be easily able to hit 50 wins this year. Unless the sim engine wants to make us a bit more mid. But last year was kind of a fluke year with how bad we simulated. And in the playoffs, we found ourselves. So, we'll be interested to see if we could actually play good in the playoffs when actually simulating good in the regular season as well. Yeah, our team is on a really good little winning streak here. We've won, I guess, now like 6 in a row. Game against Columbus is another overtime victory, and also same with Florida. So I think we're on an 8-game winning streak, right? 2, 3, 7, 8. Yeah, we've won 8 in a row going into April. We're 51, 20, and 3. We still have a total of 8 more games to go to end off the regular season. So let's see what ends up happening. See if we could get to 59 wins. I don't want to necessarily be on an 18-game win streak, though, going into the playoffs or whatever it is. So, or actually a 16-game win streak. So, let's maybe have a couple losses in here just to make us a little bit more back down to earth, so to speak. Because obviously, if we do too good, we're not going to have necessarily the best run in the playoffs, right? So, there's a couple more wins in a row. So, we've now won a total of 10 games in a row. 13 games in a row, I think. God damn. We have not lost since that back-to-back loss against Ottawa and Pittsburgh. So the team is cruising. Maybe a bit to be desired. But let's go through 2 more games. Dallas and Florida. Dallas, another point at least. It's a shootout loss, so it ends up a winning streak. And there's a regulation loss. So a little bit of a downwards trajectory here. But that's all right. We don't necessarily, like I said, need to cruise into the postseason. Game against Washington is going to be a win. Nice. Philadelphia's a win as well. And the last game of the season, will we hit with 57 wins? No, we will not. We lose 7-5 in the last game of the season. We finished 56, 22, and 4. Let's advance one more day. And now the entire league should be fully simulated. We did win the President's Trophy this season. So after last year's kind of like average season, we had a really good year, which is kind of as to be expected. Even with trading away Sierra as well, we did really good. So, shows our defensive core is still strong without him. But yeah, we finished first place in the league. Where did the Oilers finish? Second place. It'll be interesting if it's a rematch in the Cup Finals like it was last year. So let's hide everything that's going on here just because I do want to take a look at stats, but I want to make sure it's a surprise for all of us. I don't want to necessarily spoil things. So let's go here and boom. Okay. So first and foremost, the standing stuff. We finished in first place by 8 points. So the Oilers actually fell off a little bit, but we were by far the best team in the NHL, which is nice to see. Goals for per game. We were the 3rd best offensive team in the league, only behind the New York Rangers and the Edmonton Oilers. All right. Goals against per game. we actually fell off from the first best defensive team and became the second best defensive team. So Colorado, it's probably because of the last game of the season that dictated that, because we allowed 7 goals against Carolina in that last game of the season. So we probably should have won the Vezina, or not won the Vezina, won the Jennings this year. But that last game of the season dictated that. And Colorado, who did not make the playoffs, managed to have the best goals against, which is kind of weird. Interesting. Power play percentage, 18.8%, is just outside of the top 10, but still that's pretty damn solid, I would say. What else do we got here? 82.7 on the penalty kill. That's better than it was early in the season, I think, but it's still quite low. Still quite low, but at least it's improving, it looks like. Wow, we had 21 shorthanded goals this season as a team. 21 shorthanded goals. That is an outrageous amount of shorthanded goals. I don't think I've ever had 20 plus shorthanded goals in a year. So I'm kind of curious on who had shorthanded goals for his team. But even though our penalty kill was giving up a lot of goals, we were scoring a lot of goals on those penalty kills too. 30-10-1 on home ice and 26-12-3 on the road. 7-2-1 in our last 10 games. But 21 shorthanded goals. That's 8 more shorthanded goals than the next closest team, which was Philadelphia. God damn. So shout out to the team's defensive play, and oh my goodness. Well, it looks like our offense was quite strong in the second half, because I don't think Frundell was on pace for 111 points. He had 82 points in 62 games. So if I look at my calculator, if I could actually open up the calculator app, which I don't think I can right now, because for some reason when I'm always recording, if I try to open up the magnifying glass to bring up the start tab and stuff like that, it doesn't allow me to type in stuff like that in that area. So I can't even bring up the calculator right now to tell. But I would assume he was not on pace for 111 points, because I'm pretty sure it was only 82 and 62. But what a crazy year for our captain. The question I have is, what about the rest of his team? Let's actually, once again, cover up things so that way I can basically change this over to each position, and so we do not see anything until it actually gets shown. So, got this over to center. Let's take a look at some stats here. Mäkinen also hit 100 points this year in 79 games, so that's a big year for Kari Mäkinen as well. Probably set up Frundell quite a bit. 40 goals, 60 assists, plus 52. Very, very good year for him. And this is the first year of his big contract, so he's definitely living up to that $9.25 million right now. Hopefully he continues that in the postseason, but yeah, that's a very, very nice season from him. 5 shorthanded goals from him as well, so he had 5 of our 21 shorthanded goals. 8 shorthanded points, too. Holy crap, Mäkinen. God damn. All right. So Mäkinen is looking really good. He's also winning a lot of faceoffs and having a lot of takeaways, so I feel like Mäkinen at some point could actually maybe be up there for a Selke. He's good on draws. He takes away the puck a lot. Has a lot of short-handed points. That would be nice if he was up there potentially for one. We'll see if he ends up being up there at the end of the year, but that's really nice to see. 78 points in 79 games for Stefan Bjorkstrand. That's another good season from Bjorkstrand. 33 goals and 45 assists. That is a career high for him as well. Just under point per game, but still very solid. No short-handed goals for him. No short-handed points, but very solid power play player. We also have Giordano on 67 points. He's a pending RFA this offseason, so I hope that we don't have to pay him too much. But a good year for Zane Giordano. He jumps into the top 6 after replacing Jääskeläinen and does really solid. Doesn't necessarily score as much goals as I was hoping for, but 44 assists and 67 points is pretty damn amazing. Eriksson on 53 points in 77 games, plus 10 as well. So I think that second line must have had a really good last 20 games, because both these guys are, well, Eriksson was only a -1, we said. And then whoever the other guy was, which was, I'm trying to remember, Crane, he was like -3 on that second line. So I think the second line started to find their game late in the season, which is nice to see. Leahy on 35 points, plus 8. Pretty good season for Ronnie Leahy. A little bit less than last year, to be honest, but still, he's been a good player. Obviously, he's a better player in the playoffs, I feel like, so we'll see if he could help us out a little bit in the postseason again. Kaminsky only played the 8 games with 4 assists. Lindros played 3 games with 2 goals, so our depth guys did good. Left wing side of things, Anton Frundell, 42 goals, 69 assists, 111 points. Maybe an Art Ross Trophy winner, we'll have to see. But what a year for Anton Frundell. at the age of 29. Like, he only had 69 points last year, but this year doubles his goals, adds 20 more assists, and has a way better plus minus of plus 61. I'm curious to see the plus minus on the defensive core. But 2 short-handed goals and 7 short-handed points. So him and Mäkinen doing a lot of damage short-handed as well. Crane on 53 points plus 10. He was a -3 before at the start of this episode. So yeah, I definitely think the second line did a lot more work in the late stages of the season. Good year for Crane and 30 goals. Ciofito 51 points. He was good. Hopefully he's okay with his ice time still. Leeson on 42 points, 22 goals. So that's why I'm thinking he should get into the top 6 at some point. If need be, we could always trade him, but I'm hoping he's okay with his ice time, which for right now does not seem to be the case. So that's not great. Leg on 31 points. Good year for Leg. 17 goals. Nice. Yeah, pretty solid year for him as well. So in terms of our forwards, if we look at our forward stats here briefly, we had 2 100-point guys. We had, in terms of goal scoring, 2 40-goal scorers, 2 more 30-goal scorers, 2 more 20-goal scorers, and a bunch of guys on 10-plus goals. Our lowest goal scorer being Wallace with only the 8 goals and 25 points. Wow. So very good depth scoring for the team. From a defensive standpoint, how much points did Houghton finish off the year with? Because we know he was on pace for 87 points. Early in the season, he was on pace for over 100, like 101, I think it was. But then his numbers dropped off. Did he finish with 85-plus points? Let's see. Yes, he did. 90 points for Olli Houghton and a plus 43. Big year for Olli Houghton. He's definitely winning the Norris, I think, this season. Unless some other defenseman went off. But a big year for a young defenseman. Or he's actually not super young, I guess, at this point. But what a year. 12 goals and 78 assists. Obviously, last year he would have been really good, too, if he would have played every single game. But he missed a good chunk. 90 points, though. That's a really nice year. He's starting to become that offensive defenseman because he's got very good awareness. 98 awareness. His passing's at 99. He's even got really good defensive stats for an offensive defenseman. So he's definitely going to get a long-term contract here when his contract ends, but really liking the way Houghton is simulating. Tatar's been good, 30 points plus 41 as well. Salmelainen 25 points plus 16. Schaefer doing right around the same as I was mentioning. 22 points, 10 goals, plus 14, and only 4 penalty minutes. So yeah, Schaefer did have some penalties during the late stages of the season, but he's a very disciplined player, which is nice to see. Kasivi on 20 points in his rookie season, a plus 23 is actually relatively impressive for his overall. So good stuff from him. Hopefully we can find a way to get him maybe a bit more ice time next season with Salmelainen potentially leaving. Boyd on 15 points plus 11. Pretty solid. And then Wilkinson only played 1 game and had 1 point. He's dropped back down to being a depth defenseman, so that's good. Because he was listed, I think, briefly as a top 6, which kind of had me a bit concerned. But now that he's back to depth again, that's good. From a goaltending perspective, do we have a Vezina favorite? Potentially. Solovyov, 54 games played with a 38-12-3 record. Did not pick up a single shutout in the last 20 games, but that's all right. 914 save percentage. So that dropped off a little bit in a 2.46 goals against average. So he might have been in net for that last game of the season. Any assists? No assists for him. And then the young goaltender that played 32 games in Hainsey, 17-8-1 is fantastic, but yeah, the save percentage and goals against, not the best. Maybe he'll have a better playoffs if Solovyov isn't playing that good. All right, let's take a look at stats around the leagues. Let's see if we have any potential award winners here. So did Frundell lead the entire league in points? Probably not, but let's see how close he was. He was pretty close, but he was not good enough as Connor McDavid is going to finish up on top with 117 points. Guerin up there in number 2 with 115. Byfield at 113. Lafreniere at 112. And then there's Frundell in the top 5 of points. Was not expecting him to be up there. Most goals this season was Connor McDavid with 63. Guerin was number 2 with 62. Only 4 50-goal scorers this season, so a little bit lower scoring, I guess. Let's take a look at some Selke candidates for fun, too. Actually, let's go most shorthanded points for fun, too. So it was Mäkinen, Frundell, Giordano. All 3 of these guys had 7 shorthanded points. That's crazy. So these guys really helped us out quite a bit shorthanded. They had 10 of our combined 21 shorthanded goals this year. So shout out to these guys. Shout out to them. But do we have any Selke favorites? Because I know that Mäkinen could be up there for a potential Selke this year, but he's probably not going to win it just because he didn't have as much takeaways as guys like Archipov here. But I think Mäkinen can definitely come close to it if he picks up more takeaways down the road. All right. Most fights for fun, too, because I normally don't take a look at this too often. McCarty in Boston. So we could say this is the son of Darren McCarty or something like that. But 27 fights for him as a Bruin. How much penalty minutes? Or many penalty minutes? 170. All right. Best defenseman for points this year is Houghton. Yeah, so Houghton's definitely got the Norris in the bag. That's fantastic to see. I knew he was going to eventually win one. But he only had one game-winning goal, which is kind of funny to see. But in 16 power play points, so literally 74 of his points were like regular strength, which is kind of insane. But he finishes with a 12-point edge on Adam Fox and a way better +-2. So yeah, Houghton is the man. And like I said, we are definitely going to pay the man a lot. Not this coming up off season, but the following off season. He's going to get a long-term deal here. So for like 8 years, we're going to have him retire with the New York Islanders because I just can't. I don't want to get rid of this guy at any point. He's already been one of my best offensive defensemen I've had in a while. So we will definitely hold on to him long term. So there is that. Shout out to him. Wow. He actually, yeah, the defensive scoring this season wasn't super high either, too. So that makes it even more impressive because you have guys like Lane Hudson down here with 56 points, being in the top 5 in defensive points. But Houghton was almost like getting closer to double Lane Hudson's territory, which is kind of insane. So shout out to that. Best goaltender this season in terms of wins is going to be Boganecki in Columbus. Joaquin Boganecki. What a name. What a name. Most shutouts this season is going to be Robidas, Boganecki, and that's it with 6. Best save percentage by starter is going to be Marco Allen in Seattle. Interesting, with a 915. But there's also Robidas with a 915. There's Hoyles with a 915, but a way below 500 record. How do you post a 915 and have an 1832-9 record? Damn, his team must not have done anything for him. And he only had the one shutout too, which is weird. Somers had also a 915, no. Solovyov had a 914. So I think it's probably going to go to one of these 915 goalies, unfortunately. But Solovyov probably has like one of the best goals against, right? He does. So maybe that gives him an edge. Maybe that gives him an edge because the next closest to the 915 had a 2.64 goals against. Meanwhile, Solovyov had a 2.46. Not really too sure exactly who's going to win the Vezina this year. Any goalie goals, no goalie goals, most assists. There's going to be 7 assists from that Somers guy. God damn, that's the most assists I think I've seen from a goaltender in a season. Did he ever pick up more than that? No, he just picks up assists every single year, it seems like. But damn, this goalie is a very good passer. Might become one of the best assist goalies of all time if he continues like that. Best rookie this season. Vorobiev in Toronto, 66 points. All right. Not too bad. So there is that. I do also want to take a look at, like I said, our former players. So I do want to go to Toronto here and look at Jääskeläinen's stats. 85 points and 41 goals. It would have been nice definitely to have Jääskeläinen back again this season, but Giordano did a relatively solid job, I think, in his spot. But yeah, Jääskeläinen is definitely found himself in the NHL now, thanks to us. We gave him an opportunity. He found a way to relish it. He signed a big contract with Toronto, and he's continuing on that trajectory. So we saved him from the Pittsburgh Penguins quite a bit, I'd say. So there is Jääskeläinen. I also do want to take a look at Sierra in Utah. See his stats. 22 points, 82 games, -7. Not terrible. Not terrible. That's a new career high in points for him, but plus-minus obviously not the greatest, but still solid year for him. It looks like he got some power play time, which is nice to see too. So good to see guys like him when we trade him get actual time to play, because if they just get scratched or sent to the minors, it's kind of disappointing. But Sierra is actually maybe found himself a home if he gets it re-signed, which he probably will considering he's a pending RFA, but hopefully he stays in Utah for a while. So there is all that. So the question I have now is, who are we going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs? I actually should take a look at the AHL stats too. Yeah, you know what? Let's take a look at the AHL stats here briefly too. We're early into this episode kind of still too. So let's take a look at some AHL stats and see how our AHL team is doing right now. Probably not a playoff team based on some stats, but Korolyuki matters. 33 points in his first season so far. He's getting kind of close to the NHL. Anybody else getting close to the NHL here? Biggerson 41 points, 74, not terrible. Bure I don't think was... Bure is actually pretty close, but he's 24 already, so it's like, eh. Right wing side of things. Ellington, 70 points in 70 games. Damn, the low lead's doing well. 76 at 23. He might make a fourth line role next season, potentially. That's way better than everybody else on this team, though. Like, look at that point gap. Like, him and Kadri. Damn. Yeah, so Ellington is doing a lot of the work down there in the minors right now. Sundin, what about him? Because he's got top 6 potential, 74 at 22. Ulanov, who's medium elite, is 72 at 22. It's okay. Defensively, Pratt leading the way, 52 points. So we brought back Pratt just to give us more veteran presence down there. Pratt continues to be a really good AHL defenseman, not so good in the NHL. But good to see from him to continue to lead this team. Unilon, 41 points. Rollins down there. Carlson, not bad. Yeah, there's some solid stats. Even Rudder, the Enforcer, is up to a 76 right now. So he's actually pretty close to being an NHL depth defenseman as a physical guy. Goaltending perspective, Smith's on a 903. Yeah, it looks like the goaltending kind of struggled a bit down there in the AHL, but it is what it is. So, not the best year for the AHL team, but there is some positive stuff to take away, I guess. So, there is all that. So, the question is now, who are we playing in the first round of playoffs? And are we about to get cheesed in the first round after a good season, or are we going to have actually a good run this year like last year? We're going to be taking on the Boston Bruins, who went 43, 34, and 5. So basically 43 and 39. That makes me feel like I'm a little bit going to get cheesed based on that. Also, what makes me feel like I'm going to be cheesed is our comparison. You can see we finished 3rd in goals for. They finished 22nd in goals for. Yet they made the playoffs. They were the 11th best defensive team, so at least they allow a little bit less goals. Like, they're good defensively, but that offensive number is way too low for a playoff team, so that's why I'm scared. Power play percentage, we were better. They were 17th. We were 11th. They were actually better on the penalty kill than us, 16th to 18th. All right. They're actually only a 0.1% better on that PK, too, so... That goals for per game, though, that definitely scares me. I feel like they're just all of a sudden going to score a shit ton of goals on us. But who knows what's going to happen. Let's take a look at their lineup. And then I think we'll also take a look at how their players simulated during the season, too, just for a little bit of an extra thing. Also, maybe our matchup against them during the season for fun. Prime up the playoff matchup. But this is the Boston Bruins. Jari Slavkovsky. Kind of weird seeing him in Boston, but I did see he led the team in points. I think it was like only 60-something points, too. So... This Bruins team does not score goals, but they do have solid players, it looks like. They also have Ryan Winterton, I think. Yep, Ryan Winterton and Oscar Olsson. Second line has Joachim Kemmel. Also, Jordan Gavin. Yeah, Jordan Gavin. And there's that physical guy we just saw that had a lot of fights, Seth McCarty. So he's in their top 6 despite throwing a lot of fights. And during the regular season I saw, yeah, he only had 16 points. So I'm kind of surprised he's in a top 6 role. Third line, Quinton Musty as an 86. That's pretty good for a third line guy. They also have Rowan Henderson and William Ho. Ho? I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm not good with Asian last names. And a fourth line of David Pasternak at the age of 40. God damn. I wonder if he's even still scoring goals. Probably not. And they also have Ned Busenus and Fabian Lascelles still playing as well at the age of 34. All right. From a defensive standpoint, they have Emmanuel Duclair and a 90 overall defenseman in Trey Thorne, who's only 20 years old. So they definitely haven't been good as of late. Top 4 parents, Steve Noakes and Abel Williams, which sounds like a president or something. And a top 6 pairing of Nico Hischier. So I guess Hischier's in for somebody who's injured, likely, unless he's playing defense, which I don't know if he is or not. And they also have Xander Hoffman. All right. I was going to guess it was in Xavier Hoffman, but Xander. Interesting. Goaltenders, they have Dmitry Zhikov and a backup of Samuel Urson. All right. So they have solid goaltending. So I can kind of see why they're a better defensive team, maybe, because their defensive core isn't the weakest point. But this offensive core for scoring as low as they did, I'm kind of surprised maybe a bit, because they do have some solid pieces on it. From a depth perspective, they do have 2 injuries at the moment. That's what I kind of expected with Hishe being on the defensive core. They have Sheldon Kerslake, who is currently injured. They also do have Alessandro Di Orio. Got to say it like that. They also have Mason Lorai, who's currently injured. So 2 defenders are down with injuries. And then they also have Di Orio, who is a depth forward. So we'll see if those 2 defenders come back at this any point during the series. But yeah, their defensive core is definitely stronger, I'd say, almost in terms of how it's simulated. Maybe not. I don't really know. I think they look like a solid team, but they just didn't score a lot. So I'm still skeptical that they're going to start scoring a lot of goals on us. Now, maybe we'll find ourselves and just be a dominant team against them. Like, we should be able to easily beat them, but the game could just throw a curveball at us. So that's why I'm a little bit skeptical about. It's not that I don't trust our team. I trust our team to win, but I don't trust the game. So let's take a look at the injury report and see when those guys are back for them. Not that they're going to make a huge impact when they return anyways, probably, but might as well take a look. So their injuries, Lorai's out with an upper body injury. He's out till the 22nd, so he'll be back in 5 days. And Kerslake has a hernia, but he will be back only a week afterwards. So I'm not too sure if both these guys were replacing, like if Lorai tried to replace Kerslake and then he got injured and then it was both these guys out, or what? Like, are these guys both usually in their defensive core full time? Or is one of them a depth defenseman? That's my question. So we will probably see one of these guys in that series regardless. So there's that. Let's take a look at how they simulated in terms of their player stats during the season. Then we'll take a look at our in-game matchups. We probably won every single game against them, but it'd still be interesting to take a look at what they did against us in their matchups. So we want to go to their stats. So I want to see how offensive they were. I know they weren't a good offensive team, but I'm curious on their numbers. So yeah, they were quite a low scoring team. They also had a guy that was a -30 in Gavin. So yikes. Yeah, that depth scoring is good, looks like, actually, to be honest. So they might not have scored a lot of goals, but they got a lot of guys on 50+ points. They have some guys on 40+ points, including Pasternak. And then, like, even their bottom 6 did do pretty decent. I would assume their defensive core probably didn't score a lot. Let's see, their defensive core, 36 points. Kerslake actually led the defensive core in points. So, yeah, he's definitely a full-time defenseman of theirs. Lorai was also a full-time defenseman, so I guess somebody that's on that defensive core, 2 guys on that defensive core usually are scratched, which is interesting. So their defensive core is okay in terms of offensive depth scoring, but there's a couple people that are really bad defensively, it seems like. So, yeah, that's an interesting team. Very interesting team. Like I said, the depth scoring is actually not that bad, but some of the plus-minus issues on this team are quite glaring, especially that second line. Because that second line, all of them are really bad plus-minus. That pairing on the top 6 is bad. I still think we could win for sure, but I'm still skeptical for some reason. What about their goaltending numbers? A 909 from Zhikov and a 903 from Urson. All right. Where did this Zhikov guy play before? I feel like I've seen him before. No, he's only played in Boston. I thought I saw him before, but maybe not. His only time in the playoffs, he was absolute trash. So you know he's going to post a 925 save percentage against us. So there is the Bruins player stats. Final thing I want to do is, like I said, I want to take a look at our in-game matchups against them this season and see how good we played against them. We should have probably won most of the games against them, but we might as well take a look anyways and see those box scores as well. So our first meeting, November the 23rd. We won 5-1. All right. Second game, we lost to them 5-3. I'm actually kind of surprised we lost to them. And they scored 5 goals against us for being that bad offensively. So 1-1 against them. That was what day? January 3rd. So November 23rd, January 3rd. And then our last meeting against them, we won 6-3 on April the 1st. All right. 6-3. So we went 2-1 against them. So we had a winning record, but they did beat us one time. That's kind of surprising. I don't know how they beat us in that game. But must have been when we had like a little bit of a bad note or something like that. I'm not too sure. But let's take a look at those box scores for fun too. Because I want to make use of this box score function a lot more often if possible. just because it's kind of interesting. I think this is one of the best additions NHL 25 has, because a lot of people don't go into this area, but it's kind of fun just to be able to see the matchups from the regular season a little bit more. So this was our first meeting. We won 5-1. Anton Frondel had a goal, actually 3 goals. He had a hat trick against them. Nice to see that. Karain had a goal. Legg had a goal. Winterton had their only goal. 3 stars in that game was Frondel. Hainsey was in net that game, so that was during the time period when Solovyov was out, I guess. And Giordano had 2 assists that game. So Hainsey beat them. That's interesting. In a good game, too. So I'm guessing the loss might have been Solovyov, which is kind of strange, but might have been the case. So January the 3rd, we lost against them 5-3. At this stage in the season, they were 19-18-2. We were 24-11-3. So this was a pretty bad loss for the time. But we opened the scoring again. Giordano scored, but then they got 4 unanswered goals. McCarty, Slavkovsky, Kamel, and Pasternak. But then we scored 2 goals after that, Karain and Leeson, but then they got like an empty net probably from Pasternak. And unfortunately, we lost that one. 3 stars in that game were Pasternak, Kamel, and Nico Hischier for them. Was Solovyov in net that game? Yes, he was, and he got yanked near the end of it. Hainsey came in for the rest of it. Both of them didn't do too well in that meeting. Interesting. And our last game of the season against them was April the 1st. Let's see where this one is. 6-3 win. Who did some scoring in this one? Frondel opened the scoring. He had 2 goals. He actually had another hat trick against them. Makinen had 2 goals against them. And Leahy had a goal. So, yeah, it looks like Frondel's the guy against them for sure to score 2 hat tricks. He actually had 4 points in that game. Makinen had 5 points, and Bjorkstrand had 3 points. So the first line did a lot of damage in that last meeting against them. And then who was in net? It was Solovyov, but he didn't post the best numbers against them again. Interesting. All right. So that's why I wanted to take a look at the box scores just to see who was actually really good against them. And we know that the top line usually could do good stuff against them, which is good to see. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of New York Islanders franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take it to the first round of playoffs against the Boston Bruins. Hopefully we don't get cheesed. Hopefully it's just kind of like a scare tactic that the game's throwing at us. Hopefully we could easily sweep them, get ourselves to the second round beyond that as well. Because this team is very good. And obviously, if we don't make it back to the finals with this version of the team, I'll feel like, honestly, that the game decided to let us down. Because I think this team is good enough to win the cup for sure. But obviously, we just need to find a ways to win in the playoffs again like we did last season. So, think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.